the special Monday after Christmas edition of the PFF forecast. This is traditionally the live post Sunday night forecast, but we figured probably not a lot of people are going to hang out with us on Christmas evening after what was a really sleepy game, anyways. So we're doing a little pre Monday night football instead. We're still going to have the regular cast of characters, myself, Brad, Ben Brown, and Arjun, all the way from India. 4:30 in India. We're going to do a little Monday Night Football preview, and then we're going to guess the Week 17 lines and pick our favorite bets. Let's rock. I would ask you guys like any cool Christmas stories, but the question I'm going to ask you is, did you guys watch the timeless Christmas classic, How Quez Watkins Stole Christmas? Because I don't know if I'll ever get over that. I think it had as dramatic and bad an impact on me as the Grinch did on the little Who's down in Whoville. It was brutal.
Well, this actually ties into that. This is a pretty funny. So I went to a Christmas party at a buddy's house, and they have a tradition, which I didn't know about, where they actually convince the minister of the local church in between sermons. He comes to their house and does like a mini Christmas sermon, so they don't have to leave. He can just stay in their house.
Wow.
We paused it was in Philadelphia. All Eagles fans, 40 Eagles fans. We paused the game, and no one was allowed to look at their phone while it was happening. And then when Miles Sanders fumbled, there were some expletives were ringing around the house, but it was a great night otherwise.
I was on early Cowboys, so that was a sweat, to be honest with you. But it was the challenges that Brad talks about as far as like watching football games on Christmas Day. It was just like something I never want to experience again. I feel like we should petition to have Christmas on Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the rest of my life, basically. So I don't know. That's my only takeaway from that.
Yeah, I actually get on board with that. I thought the Christmas Eve football was fun. The Christmas Day football, I was like, I could kind of do without this, but I think you're right, Ben. By the way, so it was Miles Sanders. I think there were two Quez Watkins, just terrible plays where he basically gave, was it George Bland or whoever it was that had a couple of picks?
They gave him. Yeah. I mean, I thought that was a really good play by George Bland more than anything else.
It was.
Our editor John Owning had a really good, I think, like a tweet summary about it as well. But it was that those are the type of, I would say, cornerback plays you want to see actually, I would say, happen or be able to make, right? So
I feel vindicated though. It took all of that chicanery for the Cowboys to win and cover. Right. So anyways, I'm trusting the process is what I had to say about that. We're not going to spend too much time debriefing the week that was, because we're going to move on to Monday Night Football here. We have Chargers and Colts. Nick Foles now starting for the Colts after going from Matt Ryan to Sam Ehlinger, now back to Matt Ryan, and then now to Nick Foles for some unknown weird reason. It is currently Chargers minus 3.5. This one had been out to 4.5. It's now 3.5. Brad, Ben, do you guys have any idea why it's coming back down? Does this have anything to do with Nick Foles, or are there other pieces to this?
Well, I can't tell you. It's Nick Foles, just so the Colts don't owe Matt Ryan some extra money next year. If he were to get hurt, they would owe him a bunch of guarantees. So this is a purely financial decision. As for why people are betting on Nick Foles, that I cannot inform you of as to why that's occurring.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say this is going to be like 2017 vintage Nick Foles at this point. So maybe if you're into nostalgia, like that's the one side of it. But I very much think this is the Chargers smash spot. I know I'm going against Greenline a little bit about this one. And I'm also kind of getting on Brad Spielberger's like need for this to happen in a Survivor League as well. So maybe like the combination of all these factors of us like kind of coming together is the one reason why, Nick Foles and the Colts can maybe get there. But I very much think the Chargers are probably the only play here on Monday night.
So it's interesting. I kind of have that same thought as well. And I actually have some Chargers. I took them at 4, and I'm going to take a little bit more of them at 3.5. I think there's this little bit of just Chargersness that you get weirded out by them having to cover more than a field goal against like anybody. But the Nick Foles thing, the reason for playing him, I think, is interesting, Brad. And this, to me, like, I would have kind of expected a little Nick Foles bump. Like, we got, this guy that just, he's willing to throw, while getting his lungs pierced through by a linebacker on a blitz. And like, how inspiring that is, because, Matt Ryan's been getting torched under pressure all year. I think he had like a 25 passer rating under pressure. But I'm not sure that you're going to get that here. And given that they're benching him for monetary reasons, I'm not sure that's going to raise the morale of your team. You also have what I think is an interesting dynamic here, which is that you have a huge, I know Brandon Staley's been catching a lot of like flack and stuff, but a huge disparity, I think, from a coaching standpoint, not to mention the quarterback standpoint. But I actually think, to me, the plays that I like most are on the prop side of things. So I'll get to those in a little bit. But Brad, we realize that you have some Chargers liability in your Survivor League. So
I wish we didn't broach this. I think we may have just put some bad juju on the old Survivor League. But hey, we're pulling for the Chargers tonight. Week 16. There's 3 teams left. 1 guy in the Bucks, and then 2 of us are on the Chargers. So Chargers ML, it's all we need. You mentioned the under earlier this week. It's come down. You got some good CLV, but I think a full field goal now. We took it at 47.5. I think it's 44.5 right now. So obviously Nick Foles helps with that a little bit, but it was good to see, some good moving line, closing line value on a total. You don't get that every day.
Yeah, and this game, obviously, it's in Indy, which is going to be very, very cold, light snow, but this game is indoors, so that's not going to matter if anyone cares about that kind of thing. Looking at some of the player props, are there any particulars that you like, Ben, that you've already bet or are going to bet?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because, like you said, I do think the Chargers are going to be up early. Maybe we get some like weird Chargers happenings in the 3rd and 4th quarter, but it is a game that I expect them to at least lead somewhat comfortably, especially in the first half. So I do, outside of the prop market, I do like the Chargers -2.5 first half number. Like you said, this isn't an expectation where they have to cover a field goal or more differential. And kind of going back to the coaching discrepancy, right? Like, Brandon Staley, for all intents and purposes, has been pretty poor from a 4th down decision making, but has very much been able to, I would say, kind of scheme a defense to shut down, the opposing passing attack. Colts' 2nd worst, EPA on scripted pass plays so far this season. I think that's kind of an indictment on, Jeff Saturday and the rest of the coaching staff just not really being capable of kind of developing a play, initial game plan from scripted plays to kind of be successful. So maybe that changes with Nick Foles, but I expect the Chargers to be out early. So -2.5. I also think Zach Moss, it was the guy, or has kind of been the feature back from the Indianapolis Colts perspective. I do think Deion Jackson is very much, the passing down back, but I think they're still going to try and get Zach Moss reps. So if he is in there, with the Colts, kind of, I would say a little bit, a touchdown or more, I think him to go over 8.5 receiving yards is a spot that you can definitely get on board with. He did play, a much higher percentage of offensive snaps, higher routes run, last week than Deion Jackson. So he's going to have some opportunities, especially if the Colts are down. So I like him to go over 8.5 receiving yards. And then, going to the Chargers side of things, I think it very much depends on, a skill position unit that is probably going to be as healthy as it's been all season, and how you kind of, project out those snaps and targets to kind of break down from the Chargers perspective. I think there might be some opportunity, on a guy like Donald Parham or even DeAndre Carter for an anytime touchdown, like a +1,000 price or higher. So, you're getting 10-1 on your money on those 2 guys, to one of them to probably get in the end zone. I think that's going to be the matchup kind of in that slot tight end position where the Chargers are going to have the most success throwing the football. So I like one of those 2 guys to, either go over the receiving yardage number, or also probably, find the end zone from an anytime touchdown perspective.
What about you, Brad?
Yeah, so first off, I love the angle on the slot receivers for the Chargers. No Kenny Moore tonight for the Colts, but also really like you mentioning the game script, and that plays into my favorite prop of the night, and that is Michael Pittman over 5.5 catches. So I wrote this up preseason, actually. He just cashed it last week, the over 85.5 receptions. He now has 86. Because the reason I loved it, one reason was Matt Ryan just peppers his number 1 target, had 140 or more targets in 5 straight seasons. coming into last year to his number one option. And obviously Pittman is the best guy on this team. And Foles is a similar player. I looked it up. We need Allen Robinson. We need Alshon Jeffrey. He throws anticipatorily. I think I've said that 2 weeks in a row now. Still not sure if it's a word yet. But he likes to throw with anticipation. He likes to trust his big body guy to go up, make plays on the football, back shoulder stuff. Just, let that guy make a play. I think Michael Pittman's going to have 12, 15 targets tonight because they will be down. I expect them to be down in the game. So that's my favorite prop for tonight.
I was going to roll with that one as well, Brad, but I like that, thinking about kind of the soft spots in the Colts defense. The Colts outside corners are amazing. You can see this on PFF.com, PFF Plus subscription, or the PFF app. But the outside receivers, Gilmore and Rogers, both top 10 graded corners this year. I think probably maybe the missing, or not missing piece, but what people are not thinking about with the Colts is like, oh, great coverage unit. But they do really have great outside coverage. In the slot without Kenny Rogers, going to be relying on Julian Blackmon, has a 60.8 PFF coverage grade. And you look at Keenan Allen, there's 62.5 receiving yards. I think, right now, 5.5 receptions, like minus 158 if you want to bet the over. So I'm going to steer away from that and go and take the receiving yards for him, but also like the Pittman angle as well. In this game, I think it's a really especially thinking about Nick Foles here. Like you go, oh man, I remember when Nick Foles used to play, games that mattered, and he was decent. And the one thing that I have in my mind is him just throwing hospital balls up to Alshon Jeffrey for the Eagles.
Oh yeah,
and there's a little bit of Alshon Jeffrey and Michael Pittman with their length and kind of ability to just go up and make plays. So I think that's going to be where Foles will land. It's also interesting, some value on Zach Moss, but also conversely some value on some Deion Jackson unders. If you go and look at the PFF props tool, for example, those are some of the plays that we like as well. Ben, when you were looking, you've run the simulation, obviously, for members of the printing press. We're working on a play-by-play simulation. Ben heads that research up, and it's really, really cool stuff. But any kind of tidbits or things in there, Ben, that you wanted to point out?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the DeAndre Carter, Donald Parham touchdown situation. Obviously, DeAndre Carter isn't going to be getting the snaps that he was even 2 weeks ago. Very much like a much higher, threshold for him to actually get on the field as the fourth receiver for the Chargers. But he was at, a 20% snap share last week. That's kind of where we had it from, a play-by-play simulation kind of projection out. So if he kind of maintains that, him to, get an anytime touchdown, him to go over his receiving yards numbers as well, because he did have, I would say, I think it was 2 targets basically last week, even on a very limited, routes run percentage. So he's the guy that, when he is on the field, he is going to get those manufactured targets. And I know we've all talked about it, but very much where they're going to attack this Indianapolis Colts defense, I would say, is kind of on the inside, interior, over the middle. I think, a Carter manufactured target, especially near or in the red zone, could very much pay off dividends. So that's kind of what we're seeing. The play-by-play simulation is very pro Los Angeles Chargers, I would say, outright tonight. I think they have it, closer to a median
good news, Brad,
of them winning by, -6, -6.5 or something. So it very much was, that was the one thing opposite of Green Line, very much on the market, I would say, from over under. I think we're at basically 45 is the mean expectation for that. So it expects kind of a Chargers victory. For my money, where I'm playing that is Chargers -2.5. But I think anything from that perspective is, probably I would say best case scenario for how you want to allocate some of those dollars here tonight.
What are the odds on DeAndre Carter anytime touchdown?
So if you look, I think BetMGM had him at +950. I think if you shop around a little bit more, there's some +1000s out there. I know people hate when you say +1000. So 10-1 basically on DeAndre Carter, I think was the best price I saw it at. Donald Parham as well, 31% snap share last week. Obviously, Gerald Everett's going to be, heavily involved, but I still think, we're going to see him probably get some opportunities as well. I think his best number +1100, 11-1 on your money for him to get an anytime touchdown. So either one of those guys, not a high, I would say, volume of, opportunities, but I think they're going to have the valuable opportunities. So those are two guys that I really like here tonight.
It's interesting. The kind of shopping around for prices and stuff like that. we did some research on, kind of the things that bettors need the most, that they're like the least kind of satisfied with in the market in terms of products that are out there. And something that surprised me was how much people, and these are particularly like kind of PFF people that use PFF, members of the printing press, I should say, the ability to kind of find the best odds for a particular bet. And so, it's something that we mention a lot. There's some good tools out there. The PFF tool is one that will be getting better with that over time. But, it's interesting. I expected people to be not very price sensitive because this is America.
Right.
Cares. But it's a good point. Okay. So Brad, are you hedging emotionally, physically, monetarily? Are you going to watch the game? Are you going to like drink heavily and not watch the game? What's your plan?
Small play on the Colts ML. Big play on one of my favorite Christmas gifts is those spherical ice cubes I got from a you put so some bourbon will be consumed to kind of ease our way through the
night. Bourbon of choice.
Well, all I have right now is Maker's Mark, but we could do a whole podcast on bougie bourbons, but a nice Maker's Mark always gets the job done.
Bougie bourbons, I think that would be a hit. Maybe we'll save that for some off-season content.
Perfect.
All right, Ben, appreciate you. Ben Brown, at PFF_Ben Brown. You can follow him. All the great content, both on Twitter and PFF.com. He's a fantastic resource and a man of the people who you can find at the Minnesota Vikings whiteout in URCU.
There we
Ben,
go.
thanks so much for hanging out.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you.
Thank you, guys.
All righty, we're going to bring Arjun on in just a second, but before we do, I want to tell you guys about some things. Maybe you got some Christmas cash. I don't know what everyone's situation is like out there, but you should use it to sign up for a PFF Plus subscription. Now is a great time. The playoffs are coming in, so you can benefit from all the betting tools that we have. If you're still in your fantasy playoffs and you somehow made it there without PFF, go get yourself a PFF Plus subscription. Promo code FORECAST, FORECAST, gets you 25% off. And you can use it on the app and on PFF.com. So go make that happen. Also, I should remind everybody that just because you can't bet on sports in your state doesn't mean that you can't actually put money down on something to happen in a sporting bet. With BroThrow, some members of the printing press use BroThrow. I think a guy named Jim on Twitter, Jim Mullins, I want to say is his name, Brad, who's great about tagging the people that are kind of giving him some good picks, and he's cleaning up. He is literally printing out there, which is kind of cool to see. And he's doing it on BroThrow. So BroThrow is just basically an exchange. You bet against other people. You don't pay a vig, so you bet $100, you win $100. And you can kind of set the lines too. Like if you want to bet Chargers, -4.5, +150 or something like that, you can throw it on there and someone will take your bet. And if you win, you win. You get paid out in Venmo, Cash App, whatever it is. So go to BroThrow.com/PFF to sign up. You need that link in order to do so. Highly recommend, have used it and have been paid out every single time, which I'm sure everyone is like, do you get paid out? Yes, you get paid out. Last but not least, before we get to Arjun here, we have our good friends at Western and Southern. If you got yourself maybe a little bit, some Christmas cash you want to save up for a house or like anything else, go to westernsouthern.com/PFF. They'll put you on a game plan to achieve the financial goal that you are setting for yourself for 2023. So go to westernsouthern.com/PFF and make that happen. All right, Arjun, your Chargers are playing tonight. You are about as far away from where the Chargers are playing as you could possibly get. You are in Mumbai, India. It's like 4:30, 4:45 over there. Welcome. And have you brought your Chargers fandom with you? Are there going to be a big group of people watching with you in a bar somewhere? What's the vibe over there?
Yeah. I mean, football never stops, never sleeps. So, being asked to do the podcast, having the game basically at like 6:30 in the morning, I was all for it. So, I mean, it's just going to be me. I don't even think my family is going to be awake while I'm watching the game. So I hope I don't wake them up. I don't usually like scream or talk a lot during Chargers games, but yeah, I mean, I'll probably just tweet through it or something. But
I'm surprised by that, by the way. I see you as like as a stand and yell at the TV type of guy, which I am as well.
Well, yeah, I think it depends who I watch it with. But if I'm watching alone, I'll just tweet through it. But yeah, I mean, India doesn't have that big of a American football fan base, so I can't really go out and share the fandom with anyone else.
There are a few members of the PFF team, actually,
Yeah.
in addition to yourself, that are in India, and they've been doing a really nice job on the PFF fantasy leagues that we have. Very quick learners, I must add, and I like. It's really cool to see different cultures kind of pick up, the game of football, and so hopefully you're doing your part while you're out there. I can see that you are by wearing the vintage PFF logo over there. I could sit here and ask you like tons of questions about Indian cuisine, which is like, one of my favorites, but I won't. I will spare the printing press here, and we'll move on to guess the lines for week 17. So here's what we did. Because we're like a day later, most people have probably looked at the lines already. So what we did is we guessed the lines, we put them in our sheet. What I will do is I will read them out. And then we're just going to go and kind of see if anyone has a bet that they'd like to place, starting with the person that has the biggest differential in their guess. So we'll start off. Dallas, Tennessee is on Thursday night. This one is in Nashville. I had Dallas by 13.5. Brad had them by 10, and Arjun by 11. Actual line is 9.5. So before I decide to say whether I'm going to bet or not, Brad, is this saying that there's a chance Tannehill comes back? I'm assuming Malik Willis, right?
It's going to be Malik Willis. I don't think Derrick Henry is going to play. I don't think Jeffrey Simmons is going to play. The only thing that matters for them is week 18. They actually did this a couple of years ago. They arrested Derrick Henry week 17 one time. So, yeah, that's, I think, part of it as well.
Yeah, okay, that was my assumption as well. I saw the Derrick Henry news. So, I will take Dallas as a 9.5 point favorite on the road here, especially, with like Philadelphia. It doesn't look like, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to play again, or at least this coming week. So I will roll with the Cowboys. Arjun, what about you?
I think I'm gonna lay off. I feel like Vrabel, he does seem like the type of coach to like get his players ready, like and be able to like cover these big spreads. We saw something similar to Titans Kansas City a couple weeks ago on prime time, where they covered like 14.5 or 13 or something. I don't necessarily think that the Titans are like a good team anymore. I definitely have some Jags AFC South tickets that I think I feel pretty confident about now. But I think Vrabel is like, if he has a whole week to kind of, or like a short week, I think he could be up there in terms of game planning for this Dallas offense, which has been on a tear recently with Dak Prescott. So laying off.
Do you think he can teach Malik Willis how to drop back to pass, throw football?
Couple days, right.
The only thing that I will say about the Tennessee Titans and their offense is that it's going to be really funny to see Malik Willis last longer with his team than Zach Wilson. I just think that's going to be pretty funny. Chicago, Brad is not betting on this one. Chicago Bears, Brad's team, going to Detroit to play the Lions. I had this as Lions by 4.5. Brad had them by 6.5. Arjun by 5.5. It is Lions by 5.5. Brad, are you betting on this at all?
So I'm not going to take the Bears here. The Lions obviously got ran all over against Carolina, and that's what Chicago does, right? You get Khalil Herbert back from injury. He looked pretty good in the game against Buffalo, at least in the early going. Justin Fields is still Justin Fields. So I just don't like the matchup. I'm sure Detroit will win the game, but I'm not comfortable laying that many points.
You're sure Detroit will win the game? Okay, that's a bold statement. I'm going to lay off as well. I don't love that matchup, to your point. And Arjun, you are laying off this one as well. Arizona and Atlanta, going to Atlanta. Desmond Ridder playing in his third game. For Arizona, is this going to be Colt McCoy, Brad? That's what I assumed, but check.
I think it's possible. Could also be Trace McSorley. So is there's much of a difference there? I couldn't tell you. Man, Colt's a little better, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Arjun and Brad, you guys both have this at -3. I had Atlanta as a 1.5 point favorite. They are a 3.5 point favorite. I'm going to lay off this one, even though I'm well short here. I do think if push came to shove, I would take the Cardinals getting 3.5 points. Atlanta's not a very good team here, but the uncertainty. If I knew Colt McCoy was going to play, I'm taking them plus 3.5. Without that knowledge, I'm gonna lay off. Either of you guys making moves on this one?
No, let's. I'm just waiting to talk about some football with some NFL caliber teams. We're getting there. We're getting there.
All right, we'll go lightning round here. We get one NFL caliber team in the next game, which is Denver, Kansas City. I have Kansas City by 12.5. Brad has them by 17.5. Arjun by 14, and the line is Kansas City by 13.5. So I'll start with you, Brad. If you have any plays here, you're furthest off, I think.
Yeah, so I do think this spread is short. I was a little bit short when the Chiefs were laying 17.5 a couple weeks ago against I forget who, but I mean the Broncos. Obviously, they had the defense top 5 in e-paper play allowed on the season, but they gave up yesterday as well. So now the entire team has given up. The only reason I'm not betting it, the new coaching change and all that. I don't think Hackett was the favorite guy in the building, so I'll avoid for that reason. But Kansas City still has everything to play for, trying to get the number 1 seed from Buffalo. It's a divisional rivalry. The Broncos talk a lot of smack, even though I haven't beaten them in like 6 years. I want to take it, but I'll avoid the new head coach bump.
Yeah, I don't think Hackett was the problem. So I don't think
it was the solution either, though.
No. Someone posted a video of him mic'd up at Packers practice, and like someone should have watched this before hiring him, and it was not great. I'm laying off too. Arjun, you as well?
Yeah, laying off.
All right, Miami, New England. In New England, I had this as a pick. Brad, you had New England getting 2.5, and Arjun, you had New England favored by 1. Brad, you're furthest off again here, so I'll go to you.
Yeah, so I will say I thought Tua Tagovailoa was going to be playing in this game. He's now back in concussion protocol, and based on how his season has gone, you'd imagine if he is found to have sustained a concussion, they probably will not play him. Teddy Bridgewater / Skylar Thompson against this Patriots defense, I don't love. So, yeah, that's why I was off. If it was Tua, I would have liked Miami a lot. I think fading New England has been profitable for us for the past couple of weeks now. Their defense is – I mean, look, they are still first team paper play allowed, but you break it down by quarterback they're going up against, and things change, which is the case for all defenses. But nevertheless, without Tua, I'm not going to take it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same here as well. If it was Tua, I mean, obviously I would like this as a teaser leg, despite how bad he looked yesterday. Arjun, you doing anything with this one?
I mean, I kind of the over under for this game is 43.5 at some books juice towards the under. I would definitely lean under here. Belichick is going to go against Tyreek and Waddle for the second time, so I think he'll be better in game planning against them. I know Tyreek I think at like 8 catches, 93 yards or something like that in their first matchup. And I know like Belichick's like coaching has been like a hot topic for some reason, even though they're like top 3 or like Brad said, first in EPA per play allowed. And while I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is like a young rookie quarterback that will struggle versus Belichick, assuming he's the one that's starting, I don't think Mac Jones is the guy to take advantage of this pretty bad Dolphins secondary. I don't think Teddy and like the rest of the group are going to be able to overcome Belichick, who I don't think they had the best game against the Bengals, and I was definitely sweating -3.5.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the under here, and in that like divisional late season game, I think Belichick will have a good game plan, and again, I don't think Mac Jones will take advantage of Dolphins secondary. So under is the play.
Yeah, I do think if it was Teddy, I still think the Dolphins are teaser material. Indy playing tonight. They play in New York against the Giants next weekend. I had Giants by 3, Brad by 4.5, and Arjun had the Giants by 3.5. It is on the nose 3.5. I'm laying off this one, being only half point off. But Brad, you're a full point. You rolling with the G-Men?
Yep, I'm on the G-Men here. They had 6.8 yards per play against Minnesota to Minnesota's 5. They were the better football team, I think, in that game. And you're also seeing their young pass rush duo. Azeez Ojulari had a sack in the game. Kayvon Thibodeau was disruptive again. And then their interior with Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams right now is just playing some phenomenal football. So I think it's too short. The Colts obviously have had their issues with their tackles all season long. I'm assuming it's Nick Foles again. They're going to blitz as the Giants always do, and he's very, very bad against the blitz. Has been for a while. So, yeah, I love that spot for the G-Men.
Wick Martindale, yeah, he's going to blitz a lot. So that could be a bit an issue. All right, New Orleans, Philly. This one is in Philadelphia. I was really interested what you guys were going to have on this because I went kind of back and forth. I started like 7.5, and then I went to 6.5, and I netted out at 7. We all three had Philly by 7. It is Philly by 6.5. Assuming this is Gardner once again, I don't think it really. I mean, if Jalen were to come back a little early, I'm not sure that's changing anything for me. I'm tempted here. Does anyone want to like talk me into the Eagles, Arjun?
I can't really talk you into the Eagles. Like normally, like I would have made this line like 7.5, 8, even with Gardner Minshew. But I think not having Lane Johnson, that's big. And Saints, like, I mean, for what it's worth, I've been playing like good football recently. I know they lost the Bucs game on like Monday night, like a couple weeks ago, but like even that game, like they were the better team. I think not having Lane Johnson's kind of big. I know Andre Dillard is one of the better swing tackles in the league, but I posted this graph the other day, like no offensive lineman gets left on islands, like with no help or double teams more than Lane Johnson. And he's the best at succeeding, like having a high success rate per PFF grades in those situations. So you can't just replace him and not expect there to be some drop off. So I get a little bit worried about that. And now that the Saints have a week of film on Gardner Minshew against a pretty solid Cowboys defense, like I think the Saints defense is like kind of good enough to slow down this Eagles offense. So I'm not talking myself into the Saints. There is some worry for me about taking the Saints at 6.5, but I think they're a good teaser, like especially even if it's not like a standard Wong teaser. I think teasing them down to like basically a pick would not be that bad of an option.
Yeah, Avonte Maddox hurt too, right?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that Avonte Maddox got hurt in this game too. Right?
Also out, for the foreseeable future. So slot corner, and like you said, I mean, maybe the best right tackle in the NFL, probably the best right tackle in the NFL. The one thing I will say, George, which I learned last week, and boy, am I glad I did. We have a good idea of what guys are not going to play or are going to play coming into games, but as long as there's still speculation, and there's going to be with Hurts all this week too, just like there was last week. The spreads still move when it becomes official. So when we bet on Wednesday, it was 5 or 5.5 for Philly. It actually did get to 6 when they officially said, all right, Gardner Minshew is now the starter. It's not going to be Jalen Hurts, even though we knew that the entire time. So I think that if you want to play Philly, I would wait all week, and I would bet you it gets down from 6.5 to 6 or 5.5 or something like that. Cam Jordan does rush on the side where Lane Johnson is usually. So, the defense there gets, a bit of a boost. But yeah, I would say if you like the Eagles, just wait until it's officially Gardner Minshew and you might get a point and a half of value.
That's a good point. Carolina, Tampa Bay. The game, I guess, sort of for the division, which is just crazy to think about. Tampa Bay got through for our teaser. They needed the teaser points last night against the great Trace McSorley. Carolina kicked the crap out of the Detroit Lions. So shocking to say, Carolina more impressive in their victory last week than Tom Brady and the Bucs. I had the Bucs still favored by 4.5, Brad by 3.5, and Arjun just by 3, which is exactly what the spread is. So I'll kick this one off. I'm the furthest away here at 4.5. I feel like a broken record now saying that, I actually do have faith in the Bucs. I do have faith in the Bucs, and, Tom Brady's going to figure it out. If you need last-second miracles to beat Trace McSorley, I cannot continue. I just can't do it anymore. It's just not worth it at all. So I'm laying off this. I respect the market here. I think it's ridiculous that Carolina is within a field goal of Tampa Bay, but that's Tampa Bay's fault. This is not like Carolina's some amazing team. So I'm passing on this as well. I need to get some bets on the board, but this is not going to be where I do it. Either of you guys going to make a play here?
No.
So I have a player prop. He's been not doing anything recently, but he's been getting the opportunity, and that's Mike Evans. Just hasn't really capitalized. There's been some drops, focus drops, stuff like that. So J.C. Horn, not going to play in this game, broke his wrist, might come back for the end of the season, but not going to play. I think, look, Tristan Wirfs re-aggravated his ankle, probably doesn't play in this game, and Josh Wells, I think, tore his ACL, unfortunately, so he's out for the year. So here, third-string right tackle at this point. I think it'll be a lot of quick outs. They've been giving Evans some of those screens, just trying to get him involved. I would look for his receptions prop on the outside, not getting a JC Horn matchup. That's the only angle. And honestly, part of the angle, too, is the game script's going to be good because they're not going to have a multi-score lead against this Carolina Panthers team because they're just not good.
Yeah, that's fair. Cleveland and Washington. I had Washington getting 2.5 points here. Brad had them as a 1.5 point favorite. Arjun had them as a 3-point favorite. So we're all over the place here. Arjun, you are totally on the other side of me here. So I'll actually start with you and whether there's a play that you like, but kind of just hearing your logic here.
Yeah, I mean, so like I don't think Deshaun has been particularly good so far this year, but I also recognize his last 2 games have been like just games where it's tough for any quarterback to be efficient, like playing in that type of rain and snow or wind versus the Browns. And then the week before, like it's just tough. And like he was still more efficient per EPA per play than the other quarterbacks. So it's not like he was like a worse quarterback in that matchup. I just think it's tough to really get a gauge on like where he is as a quarterback right now. I do like teasing the Browns at to 8.5. Again, if Washington beats this Browns team by more than a touchdown, and after the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson, like I think that's just not. I just don't know like how that really happens, but yeah, I think the Browns like I like them teased out to 8.5, and I mean this will probably be like Deshaun's like first like regular game since the Texans game, like in terms of weather, and I don't know the Commanders' defensive line is great. But the Browns also have a pretty good offensive line to counter that. And extending Jack Conklin a couple of days ago, I think, they should have some success, at least handling the trenches on the offensive side of the ball.
I could have said it better myself. All my thoughts exactly. They're a teaser like for me as well. They had a weird game. Myles Garrett didn't start. There's some drama there, but I think it's more just maybe probably missed a meeting or something. I don't think it's anything larger than that. But I think they have something to prove too. I think they need to win a couple games here. I know that the season doesn't technically matter, but Deshaun trying to get the rust off, all those things. I think it's a great teaser like for sure.
Yeah, I'll tease it as well. I'm tempted to just play the game outright, but all the points about Deshaun Watson are completely valid. He has a 23 pass rating under pressure, which is awful. But the thing I'm even more concerned about is when kept clean, and they have a great offensive line, and that's why I think that the Browns should be favored in this game. He has an 84 pass rating. That's horrible. The fact that, any good quarterback in the NFL has a 100+ pass rating from a clean pocket. That's just standard. This is the year of our Lord 2022. And Deshaun Watson has been terrible. So I'm going to wait to kind of bet them outright, consistently until I see that happen. But I agree. A game in which the opposing team still can't figure out which quarterback of their terrible quarterbacks to play, does not a favorite make, in my opinion. So I think this line is sort of flipped, and I love the Browns teaser leg. I think I'd consider them ATS as well. All right, Jacksonville and Houston. By the way, someone in the chat, let me get their name right here. I can't find it. They said, are the Broncos worse than the Texans?
That's Ben Hedman. Shout out Ben Hedman.
Yeah. Member of the printing press. I think that's potentially a valid question. That's how bad the Broncos are. But anyways, it is Jacksonville in Houston. I had the Houston Texans getting 7 points at home. Brad had them getting 6.5. And Arjun, you were the closest. You had them getting 5. It is just 4 here in Houston. Now, is the reason for this that this game doesn't really matter for Jacksonville? Is that, again, the kind of thing with Tennessee, it not really mattering until their
only
week,
thing that Jacksonville or Tennessee can do to make the playoffs is to beat the opponent in week 18. Nothing else matters. So I think that is why this spread is so short. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna lay off, even though I think this is kind of ridiculous. Houston is just so terrible, and the fact that they beat Malik Willis should not be lauded. But I'm going to lay off just because I think Jacksonville, they could do some crazy stuff. Like they could pull Trevor Lawrence in this game, and it wouldn't surprise me, whatsoever. That I guess we're looking at Sunday Night Football Week 18, Jacksonville, Tennessee. Tennessee has played in that game, it feels like, every single year. Any plays for you? Let's go to you, Arjun.
Yeah, I still like the Jags here. Like I think it's tough to really like you said, like predict what's going to happen for Jacksonville. Maybe if they have guys who are like limited in practice, like they just won't play them outright. But I don't know if they'll particularly just pull a player. I know like Doug Peterson with his like Philly background, like has like some sports science stuff involved there. He is like analytically driven, so I'm sure he's kind of like thinking about all of the situations before the game. The one reason I did like a play, I still think the Jags like go hard in this game because they still have an outside shot as the 7th seed. I think Timo Riske, data scientist here, had them at about like a 2% chance to make the playoffs as the 7th seed. So I'm not saying it's complete, like it's not out of the realm. Like weird stuff happens in the NFL all the time, and yeah, I mean the Texans have like definitely outperformed their talent level. I think they've covered in like 3 straight weeks against some pretty good teams, and obviously one outright against the Titans. But another reason I like this game, the 3 main coverages the Texans like to run are cover 1, cover 2, and cover 3. Against cover 1, Trevor Lawrence averages a 0.376 EPA per play, which is like one of the best in the NFL. Versus cover 2, 0.08, which is above the league average. Versus cover 3, 0.12. So he's extremely efficient throwing the ball against all of the Texans' major coverages. And again, like unless they're really sitting guys like Christian Kirk and Marvin Jones, I don't really see a way the Texans defense is going to stop this Jags offense. So yeah, I am going to take Jacksonville -4 in this game.
It's a good matchup. Yeah, you've almost talked me into it. Plus, I mean, George, your favorite guy, CJ Beathard in the fold. If they do, go to him. So you've almost convinced me. I'm going to stay away, not just so I don't jinx your play, but you've sold me.
Yeah, we win and we lose as a team. So a win for Arjun is a win for the squad. So I'm going to do the same thing. I like that rationale. Let's go to Niners and Raiders, the former Battle of the Bay that's being played in Las Vegas, which I'm sure the Niner Nation will show up for in full support. I expect no different. It was funny looking back last week. I had some really big discrepancies from a line perspective. I think I had the Niners favored by 12 in that game against the Commanders. So I'm glad they pulled through and got the W because I bet them. And I'm kind of similarly not quite as far off, but I crossed 7 here. I have the Niners favored by 7.5, Brad by 6.5, Arjun by 7. I'm going to bet the Niners once again here. I just think this is a phenomenal matchup for them. The Raiders defense is going to get pushed around in this game. And the Niners just continue to be dominant, both from a pass rush perspective and from a pass block and run block perspective. So I think this is a really good matchup for them. Derek Carr has been so bad this year. And, I don't expect it to this is not like a get right spot. In fact, I think this is could be get out of town spot. In a situation where, the Niners at 11-4, 10-5 against the spread, but it's not as if they would need, I guess, the Eagles to like totally melt down. But even then, I'm not sure if they'd win the tiebreaker. So they're kind of still playing for that 2nd seed here. But here's something crazy: Brock Purdy, 71.8 PFF grade; Derek Carr, 66.6. Pass rating from a clean pocket: Derek Carr, 92.1; Brock Purdy, 113.7. That's what I alluded to earlier. This is the Kyle Shanahan offense. And in Kyle Shanahan's offense, I will trust. So I'm going to rock with the Niners. What about you guys?
I'm rolling with the Niners as well. Brock Purdy led the offense to 7.3 yards per play this past week, best in the entire NFL against a good Commanders defense. I mean, they're just, I think these spreads and also totals too. So over under is 44.5 here. I know the Raiders just scored 10 points against the Steelers, but I don't hate the over here also. I think the Niners will score maybe that by themselves. But I think we'll also see some desperation from Carr. He threw 3 picks last week, so he'll, Josh McDaniels said today in his press conference, we haven't gotten enough production out of our passing game. Like he basically was trying to not call out Derek Carr, but was clearly calling out Derek Carr the entire time. So we've all been there, right? So yeah. So I like the over here as well, but I'm joining you officially on the Niners spread.
Yeah, we're gonna make this a squad ride. San Francisco for the Battle of the Bay. There is no real weakness on this 49ers team. Brock Purdy, like you said, has been playing very, very well. And again, the Raiders secondary is pretty bad. I know the Steelers only scored 13 points, but they also missed 2 field goals, which, kind of driving, I feel like, the whole game. The strength of the Raiders is their edge group, and now they probably won't have Chandler Jones. I believe he had that elbow injury, and he got ruled out pretty quickly. Yeah, he's out. So, Max Crosby is going to be lining up over Mike McGlinchey, not Trent Williams. And, Trent Williams is obviously like the better of the two, but McGlinchey is still one of the better tackles in the league. And like you said, the Niners still have something to play for, according to Timo. They have a 38.5% chance to clinch the 2 seed, and then a 58.1% chance to stay as the 3 seed. So I think all signs point towards the Niners offense being able to succeed in this game. And the Raiders offense, I mean, like, I don't know what, there's just nothing they're good at that keeps me engaged in betting them at all. Charvarius Ward has been grading out tremendously per PFF grades, passer rating when target, all of that. And so I think, there is a lot of matchup advantages for the Niners, who will be able to take away the middle of the field with Warren and Hufanga and force the Raiders to beat them elsewhere, which I just don't think they can anymore, given the state of their roster and how Derek Carr is playing. So I definitely like Niners in this spot.
Yeah, Dallas is also 11-4. They play, obviously, they're a huge favorite in Tennessee on Thursday night. So you assume Dallas has already won. In Week 18, the Niners host the Cardinals. The Cowboys go to play the Commanders. So, there is a very legit path there.
Minnesota has Green Bay this week too. So,
yeah. So, so lots still to play for. It was interesting thinking about how well Brock Purdy has played. You mentioned no weaknesses for the 49ers. If Jimmy G is healthy, would you go to Jimmy G or would you stick with Brock Purdy, Arjun?
I'm going back to Jimmy G. It's so tough though, because I think in the playoffs you do want the veteran guy. You're not going to be going against you're going to be going against guys who are going to be able to scheme against Purdy's weaknesses, if at this point, if there is any. But I think with Jimmy, you kind of have the
I don't see any.
With Jimmy, you have the history of him I know QB wins isn't a thing, but he hasn't been awful in the playoffs, I feel like. And with Purdy, I feel like it's a mystery box. And if you're Shanahan, you want to go with the sure thing because your defense will be able to win you games against a pretty bad quarterback room in the NFC, maybe outside of Dak. So I would go back to Jimmy G, who I think is more suited for that game manager role than Purdy. But it's very close. And I think if Purdy has a very strong close to the season, we could see that being a very difficult decision. But I don't really see. I don't really think it's wise to roll with Purdy in the playoffs this year.
I will say Jimmy G, and I just pulled this up while we were talking. In his last 6 playoff games, which is 2, runs to the championship game, he's gone over 250 passing yards 0 times, gone under 200 passing yards 4 of the 6 games. Obviously, these are playoff teams and all that. Last year, he won his first 2 games with under 200 yards and a pick and no touchdowns in the first 2 games. So I agree with you. I do. But there's a case to be made for Brock Purdy, I think.
Brad, he was playing without the use of the right side of his body, which, by the way, he was still able to beat Aaron Rodgers with. Just to be extremely
sorry,
clear.
I didn't mean to come at your boy like that.
Don't mess
Beautiful boy.
Don't mess with Jimmy. All right, Jets Seahawks. This in Seattle. I have this as a pick. Mike White, by the way, is going to be back. Reports by Jay Glazer are that the Jets are going to part with Zach Wilson next offseason. Before we guess the spread here, Brad, this feels this is correct me if I'm wrong here, but this feels like even worse than Jamarcus Russell, right? I mean, this guy's the number 2 overall pick. Getting rid of the number 2 overall pick, parting ways with him in the offseason after his 2nd season. You basically have to go to Josh Rosen as the other semi-comparable. But Josh Rosen was the 3rd or 4th quarterback taken?
Yeah, 10th overall, yeah.
You had the first pick, so you went with Kyler there. This feels entirely different, and there's got to be some. I mean, there's got to be some stories here about this because right?
No, I think with that, I could not agree more. It maybe as a case for the worst draft pick of all time because like Ryan Leaf and Jamarcus Russell, it's like, all right, yeah, look, they had other issues. It was not football. Zach Wilson, by all accounts, is showing up to meetings and trying to be good at football. He just can't do it. So I think it almost makes it even worse that your eval was so off, and then your development of him has been, non-existent, or it's probably his fault more than the development. But yeah, it's brutal. And how could you go back to him? The fans are booing him every time he steps on the field. The team hates him. I mean, you don't really have a choice.
So you're just going to cut him?
I think they're going to cut him, or you just trade him. You'll get someone will give you, as you know, every team. Oh, we can fix this guy. We'll bring him in. Yada yada. Here's my actually hot take, by the way. Battle of the Wilsons in Denver next offseason. Bring in Zach. Get him and Russ together. They both get him out west, very religious, very faithful, try to just start the whole thing over from scratch. I think you have a Wilson off in Denver. That's my call.
There's got to be some story written about like what Zach Wilson is doing to piss people off, because I just think that otherwise you just like you keep him. I don't know. You give him a shot or something. Like he's got to be doing something. I don't think it's anything like missing meetings or anything like that, but there's going to be some story written about what he's doing. Maybe it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something, but he looks like he's 12 years old, which makes it harder to kind of like figure out what terrible thing he could be doing. Like the worst thing that you can imagine Zach Wilson doing is spending hours recording TikToks in Hollywood.
I think it could be the Marcus Mariota, the infamous, he had no red flags, which therefore was a red flag. It's the greatest Hard Knocks quote of all time. I forget which Dallas Cowboys coach he said, but a man with no vices is not a man you can trust. And I think maybe Zach Wilson falls into that bucket.
We just couldn't get him out of the mom's book club. He's just spending way too much time there.
That's his vice. Yeah, that's his vice.
That's his vice. All right, Jets Seahawks. I had this as a pick. Brad, you had the Seahawks getting 1.5, and Arjun, you had them getting 2.5, which is on the money. Mike White going East Coast to West Coast off of like shattered ribs is getting a lot of respect here. A lot of respect. I love the Seahawks as a teaser here. And as much as I love Mike White, I think getting 8.5 points at home, I think the Seahawks still have, an outside shot here, but more than anything, it's kind of, pride on a season that is sort of, getting away from them. And Gino obviously still playing for, a shot at that job. So I'm going to go ahead and fade a little bit of the Mike White noise here. Arjun, let me go to you. What are you doing?
I think, it depends what you do. If you're if you tease the Seahawks, like I feel like we're not on opposite sides. I do like the Jets in the spot at 2.5. Since week 11, Seattle's averaging a negative 0.05 EP per play. Gino, who had a tremendous start to the season since week 11, has only averaged like a 0.04 EPA per dropback in this time span. No Tyler Lockett, I think, is big for the Seahawks in the spot, because Sauce Gardner, by all accounts, in my opinion, is the best cornerback in the NFL right now. I really don't think anyone's playing at his level in terms of consistency before the catch point and at the catch point. He only allowed one catch to Evan Engram on a crossing route. And again, like those type of mesh routes, like you get beat on like every once in a while, but you stick him on DK Metcalf and just take him away for the whole game. And who else is going to get open for the Seahawks, right? Like that's my big question. And on the other side of the ball, I think Mike LaFleur has been pretty good this year, and Zach Wilson just misses guys like that he schemes open. The Seahawks defense is putrid. Like they can't really stop anyone. And I know the Chiefs didn't really have that great of a game offensively, but I feel like it was one of those Andrew games instead of Andy where he wasn't showing any of his good plays to a bad team. So I like the Jets in the spot. They are playing basically for their playoff lives. I think Salah will have the boys ready. And I think Mike White is the type of quarterback who can take advantage of the Seahawks, like linebackers in coverage and some of their weaker points by, just hitting the guys that are open instead of like trying to force some big plays against a pretty bad defense.
Yeah, I think we also got a shout out. He was half right on this. This is weeks ago, but Tej was saying we should look into maybe fading teams like Seattle has a bunch of rookies that are going to hit the rookie wall. And then the second half, which was wrong, was maybe the Buccaneers will get good because they're old and they're greasing the wheels. But on the one point, you look at the tackle play from Charles Cross and Lucas Abram. They've not fallen off a cliff, but they have not been the same players they were throughout the entire season before that. And I think it's really impacted Geno Smith. The run game is kind of not really there as well. I would lean Jets here. I'm afraid to actually bet it because, Mike White's ribs are probably still fractured. I'm sure he's wearing like a Kevlar vest or whatever. I lean Jets. I'm afraid to bet him. But I think, the matchups, like you said, the match such, I think, in favor of the Jets. The pass rush, the corners, like you said, we saw without Lockett how Geno kind of struggled. I'm just afraid to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. Minnesota, Green Bay. This is hilarious to me. Minnesota has already clinched the division. Maybe that's part of the reason that the spread is the way it is. But Minnesota, by all accounts, has had such a better year than the Green Bay Packers. They are in Green Bay. I have Green Bay as a 2.5-point favorite. So did Brad. Arjun, you had them as a 2-point favorite. They were a full 3-point favorite against the Minnesota Vikings, which I hope that Vikings fans take as an offense because I think that's what it is intended to be. Now, the Green Bay Packers obviously have to win this game. They have to win out pretty much to get into the playoffs. Minnesota does not have to do that. They've clinched the division, but they still have things to play for, right? Like they can still wrap up the second seed. That would be valuable, certainly going forward in the playoffs. So it's not as if they are going to be resting starters here in this game. They're a full field goal underdog to Green Bay. I'm laying off this one. Like I was actually kind of hoping that it would be, 1.5, and I could bet Green Bay, but at the full 3, I'm not going to. Brad, Arjun, what about you guys?
Yep, I'm jumping in here on a play. It's a system play at this point. It's the Vikings overs,
That's
and
right.
they're just hard to stop betting. So in this matchup specifically, looks like 47. As of right now, the weather seems to be fine. It's going to be cold, but cold's not what matters. It's wind and snow and sleet and all that stuff. So the forecast has none of that. But then also, the Vikings are 26th in e-paper play allowed, and the Packers are 22nd. They're both very, very bad defenses. No one in Green Bay is going to do anything to Justin Jefferson. I do want to see a good prognosis for Christian Watson. He's day-to-day right now with a hip flexor, but I think he's going to be fine. I know it's a late season, divisional game, all those things, but I think they're going to score a whole lot of points.
Yeah, I'm with Brad. I kind of like the over in this spot. I do think it's funny, so Packers are favored in this game. Vikings, pretty much all their wins are one score. I think they're 11-0 in one-score games, and all their losses have not been one score. So, a play here could literally just be like either you take the Vikings straight up on the money line, or you're taking the Packers alts like -6.5, -5.5 at plus money, because I know obviously those type of trends are obviously don't matter here, but again, this game I think will be kind of close, just because those are how the Vikings games go. But I agree with Brad. I think it's going to be a whole lot of offense. I think Jair is kind of played better this year, but I still don't think there's anyone in the world that's stopping Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ride with Brad. I'm going to add the over 47 to my bet list.
Yeah, I like that one quite a bit. I think there's a case to be made for the Vikings getting 3 in this game, as crazy as that sounds. And to your point, Arjun, that would be the reason. Rams Chargers, Battle of LA, kind of. Obviously in SoFi, the Chargers technically are the home team here for whatever the hell that is worth, which is not a whole lot. I had the Chargers favored by 8.5, Brad by 5.5, and Arjun, your Chargers, you had them favored by 6. It is 6.5. I'm the biggest discrepancy here. My thinking was really that, the Rams beating the crap out of the Denver Broncos, who were just self-destructing on national television before our eyes, doesn't really matter a whole lot. And, on the in reality, the Rams do stink to high heaven. 6.5 is a lot. That is asking a lot for the Chargers to actually cover. But I'm going to roll with it. I like the Chargers in the spot. This is going to be a big game for them, coming off of you would think a win against the Colts. So I'm going to roll with the Chargers here. Arjun, Brad, what about you guys?
Yeah, so look, it's weird because when my parents booked this trip back in September, I told them hey, I'll come with you to India for a couple of days, but I need to be back, on New Year's for this game, because New Year's is my birthday and I was going to be at this game. And I thought at the time in September, this would be Chargers and Rams fighting for the division, fighting for a playoff spot. And then, Rams just completely imploded. So, I will be at this game. So I hope it's a good game. But I don't think the Chargers should be getting more than a touchdown to like any team. Honestly, their only one score win has been the Houston Texans, which, that's just kind of sad. But that's just the state of the Chargers at this point. They just don't really, put up enough offensive points to kind of cover these big spreads. I think getting the hook at 6.5 is probably a good point. But if it gets out to 7, I do like the Rams to kind of keep it close on New Year's.
So you being in the building, as always, changes the variables a little bit. But I would wait till 7 as well. If it does get to a full touchdown, I think I would take the Rams. Yes, the game against Denver was not something we should be drawing large conclusions from. But that's a defense 5th in EPA per play that Baker Mayfield was just carving. I will say, I think the battle for LA, I think it's like Raiders-Bears would be the actual battle for. I don't. That's who lives in LA and roots for football. I don't know if it's Chargers-Rams.
Yeah, I'm coming off my play here. It's 6.5 is just way too many points for the Chargers to ever beat a team by. I feel like I'm going back to like the preseason. The Chargers are amazing. That feels so long ago. Pittsburgh, Baltimore. This is flexed into Sunday night. Semi-meaningful game here. I have Baltimore favored by 4, Brad by 4.5, and Arjun by 3.5. It is just 3. Brad, first off, is this expected to be Lamar?
So John Harbaugh said today he might practice. We don't know. He would like the starter to have multiple practices this week, so it's kind of up in the air. This was the game they pegged as the return game. He's missed multiple games now, but I really couldn't tell you with much certainty.
Yeah. So I think what you're hoping to do, and I would try and get some sort of intel, like kind of see if he's playing, or practicing, I should say, and then make a play here. I'm going to lay off for now, just because, with Pro Bowler Snoop Huntley, I'd be a little concerned about covering 3. Arjun, Brad, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah, I'm laying off in this game. I think Steelers defense has been playing tremendously the past couple of weeks, and like you said, I don't really have a lot of faith in Tyler Huntley to kind of lead this offense without a true wide receiver 1 to anything. So I think it can go any way, but I'm laying off.
Yeah, I'm laying off as well.
Buffalo, Cincinnati. Best game of the weekend is on Monday night. This one in Cincinnati. A really big game. Cincinnati came through after many really unlucky plays, and then got a very lucky one with the Ramondre Stevenson fumble. Managed to cover 3.5, push the 4 that we had about a week and a day ago on our Sunday Night Pod, but covered the lock of the week number at 3.5. I have Cincinnati getting 2.5. Brad, you had them favored by 1. Arjun, you had this as a pick. It is actually Cincy +1. Look, I think there's a case to be made for Buffalo here. I also think there's a real strong case to be made for Cincy as a teaser. I kind of wanted to see what you guys were thinking, though, because I feel like there's some value to be had somewhere here, and we just got to figure out where it is.
Yeah, I'm doing an Ohio teaser. So we talked Browns earlier. I'm teasing them with the Bengals up here. The Bengals do have some injuries. Cam Taylor-Britt, another corner, went down in the Patriots game. I think he should be okay for this game, though. I just love the matchup of the interior of the offensive line for Buffalo has had several injuries now. DJ Reader has been a nightmare for opposing offensive lines. And I think they're going to, create enough pressure and issues up front to make it a little bit frustrating for Josh Allen. I just love this. To me is a game where whoever's the ball last probably wins by 1 score. And I just think getting Cincy above a touchdown is the play here. Also, Buffalo, real quick. Buffalo is the team, I think, is still in Chicago as we speak and is flying home from Chicago like tonight. So that maybe is a little bit of a factor as well.
That sold me.
There you go.
I'm in on the Cincy teaser. Arjun, you joining us?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add it as a teaser leg. I think the thing with it's weird because Cincy's the hottest team in all of football right now. I think they've covered they're the best ATS team in the league. They've been playing really good football. Joe Burrow was nails in that Patriots game for a large portion of it, and he should have had another dime to Trenton Irwin, who dropped a butte right over the middle. But I think Buffalo matches up well, especially on offense. I know Brad took my interior offensive line point right out of my mouth, but I think I do worry about the Bills on defense a little bit. I don't really know if they have the hogs to kind of like stop Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, who have all been playing really good ball, and Irwin's been a reliable wide receiver surprisingly. So I think if I was to pick a side, it would be the Bengals, like straight up on the money line. But I do like them as a teaser leg, and I think, like Brad said, it's going to be whoever has the ball last.
Kyle Collins' injury for Cincy is concerning. He was much better the last couple of weeks. He started off very slow. I think he was injured. He was playing better football, now out for the year. But I think they can overcome that, to a degree.
All right, as usual, we will write up our favorite plays. Those will be on pff.com and the PFF app for you guys to check out. We are about an hour or so from kickoff in Indy. Hopefully all members of the press have a profitable Monday Night Football. We talked about that earlier in the pod, so if you missed that and you joined us live, go back and watch that part with Ben Brown. Arjun, travel safe. I can't believe that you're coming back from India just to see Chargers-Rams, but that's dedication.
Dedication right there.
Jesus.
Enjoy the morning football.
Yeah.
Members of the press, thank you so much for hanging out. Hope you guys had a wonderful holiday. We will be back normal time on Wednesday. Love you. Peace.